How do you see Israel, though? It seems to be in a difficult spot now. That is, it's been pushing for this war with Iran for decades. It finally got
Yeah.
its man in the White House.
Yeah.
Trump did it, and then obviously did not go as planned. Iran has come out on top, despite all the death and destruction. But where does that where does that place Israel at this point? I mean, how bad is the panic, and what's Plan B essentially?
Israel reportedly proposed to destroy all of Iran's infrastructure in 48 hours to the US, and the US rejected that because it's just something they can't do. I think, even the Trump administration, as buffoonish as they are, recognized that this was just another ploy to drag the US back into a war that it can't win, in which it achieved zero military objectives stated from the outset. And it was none other than the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, who opposed the war before it even began and began leaking to the Washington Post and the New York Times that the US would experience a munitions shortage, which it did. Dan Kane then testified for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I think in an exchange with Senator Dick Durbin, that Iran's navy had not been destroyed and that the US could not militarily open the Strait of Hormuz. This was as Donald Trump he's even stating today, their military was decimated, the navy's destroyed. It could be that that's what Donald Trump's being told in his echo chamber, but I think that's just the case Donald Trump wants to make to his base so he can continue to sell the MOU following this defeat. So the U.S. there's no clear way for the U.S. to achieve military objectives that it did not before, unless it's willing to commit massive amounts of air power and lose scores of planes, possibly get pilots taken hostage in order to destroy Iran's missile cities and deterrence. And it wasn't willing to do that. The war was fought through standoff munitions. Obviously after losing F-15s and an F-35 nearly being downed, the U.S. was unwilling to send in a lot of the air power that would have been necessary. And Iran has a very wise military doctrine that is based around, I was actually watching Iran's World Cup performance versus Belgium, and there was a clear analog, a clear parallel between Iran's strategy in that match and Iran's military doctrine, which is just based around survival. And that was such a wise doctrine against a U.S. empire that just doesn't have the political will to be able to even erode Iran's deterrence. There isn't the political will at home. There weren't adequate munitions. And so this leaves Israel alone. And now Israel is left more exposed than it has been probably at any point since the Suez Crisis and the 1956 war. And that means the Zionist movement is also exposed. And everything they say comes crashing against the hard rocks of the reality that the 99% experiences in the United States and around the world of economic calamity brought on by their war. And more and more people are waking up to the fact that this was essentially a Zionist war. Zionists don't understand this, though. They don't understand why everyone's mad at them. They actually see this as a form of persecution, as anti-Semitism. And they're not sharpening or honing their messaging. They're not able to cope with a popular mayor in New York City like Mahmoud Mamdani actually campaigning openly against AIPAC. More and more candidates in the US are campaigning against AIPAC. The level of opposition to Israel in Pew and Gallup polls is surging right now to record levels. It's like, I think over 80% of registered Democrats oppose sending aid to Israel at this point. The American public wants to cut Israel off. And the Israel's lobbying tentacles and the Zionist movement as a whole is not able to adjust its messaging or to cope with this reality. within Israeli intelligence, the Israeli military intelligence apparatus, for sure, they are attempting to absorb some of the lessons of this war, but they won't have the firepower to confront Iran alone. And so the outgoing Mossad director, David Barnea, has leaked this details of what his Iran unit had been doing to generate regime change, and actually predicted that the Mossad would continue to escalate its destabilization activities inside Iran and its subterfuge, fawning to spawn regime change riots, and that they will actually achieve regime change by the end of the year. Again, I think this is another false prediction to justify, absurd prediction to justify their bureaucratic priorities and get their budget, and also to keep the U.S. mesmerized by the aura of Israeli intelligence. But again, this is they don't have a clear strategy there. I think Israel will press ahead, though, with destabilization activities